Welcome to the Purpose Cycle podcast. This podcast helps you unlock the secrets to success. Welcome to season 3. Here is what we've got in store for you today.
Welcome to our meeting this evening with Mr. John Tucker. The purpose of this evening, my name is Matthew Scarr and I'm going to be introducing John. He's got a fantastic initiative out, fantastic book that we need to talk about this evening. John, first of all, how are you doing? You all right?
Brilliant, thank you. Matt, thank you for chatting to me this evening. I'm really looking forward to it.
No, my pleasure, mate, my pleasure. I've known John for a long time, so let's put that out there straight away. This isn't something that's completely new to myself. I've known John for a long, long time. He's been unfortunate enough to know me and go to school with me and many other things, and various social occasions where he no doubt wishes he wasn't there with me. But tonight, John, I want to speak to you a bit about the book you've got, what you hope to achieve from it, how people can help with that, and how people can get involved. I just want to start off with a little bit. You're a teacher. Teachers love little icebreakers, don't they?
We do indeed.
Let's start off with a few little quick fire ones for yourself. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Really? Good.
Yeah.
Good answer. I like that. Starter or dessert?
Dessert.
Ooh, don't like that. Night in or night out?
Night in now. I've hit 30 now.
Cocktails or beer?
Beer.
Good man. Good man. Favorite film?
The Pursuit of Happiness.
Ah, nice. Favorite book?
Hopefully we'll have a new one in December, but I've got to say it's Vex King's Good Vibes, Good Life.
First job?
First job? I had a boring one sort of as a sort of casual football coach, but first proper job with shifts and everything was Costa Coffee.
Nice. Yeah. Can you do a flat white?
That was the one thing I always struggled with. I never earned me beans badge for doing a flat white, but I can do one now.
They're the tricky ones. Tricky ones, mate. What's your favourite drink?
Oh, I've got to say a nice glass of 19 Crimes red wine.
Nice. I'm on board with that one massively. Favourite place to be?
I would say at home with the missus.
Lovely. And favourite holiday destination?
Santorini.
Nice. Lovely. Lovely. I'm assuming you've been?
Yeah, that's where I proposed. It's got a special place in my heart. Lovely place to be.
And dream holiday destination?
I'd love to go to the Maldives.
Perfect. Lovely. Cool. Now we know a bit more about you, John.
Yeah.
Is there anything we've missed off that you'd like to volunteer about yourself?
It probably might be worth just sort of mentioning, like you sort of have touched on it earlier. I'm a school teacher, so that's my day-to-day job. I'm sort of venturing into pastures new, kind of. It has a similar sort of theme to it, I suppose. But a lot of the things that we'll discuss this evening will probably come from the fact that I've always been in education, whether it's sports coaching or going into actual education, teaching in the classroom, as it were, as well.
So tell us a bit about that then, John. Where did the education and the teaching bug come from for you?
I think it came from secondary school. As you know, we both attended the same secondary school, and I felt extremely inspired by, it was mainly the PE staff, actually, at our school, Wolverton School. And I didn't really enjoy primary school. I had a really bad experience with primary school. It was funny because of these icebreakers, like you mentioned. I always get asked, what's your best memory of primary school? I said, I can't remember. I can't remember much of primary school, but secondary school, really vivid memories and feel really inspired by going every day. And I was like chomping at the bit to go, a complete mindset shift. So that really sort of inspired me, really. I said I wanted to be a PE teacher or an RE teacher. I don't know if you had Mr. Whitley as a teacher, yes. RE teacher. I thought he was fantastic as well. So it was one of those two sort of areas, really. And then I found myself, we did a sports leaders course with our PE teacher at the time, Mr. Temperton. That really got me into the sports coaching. So I sort of fell into that, really. I did sports coaching at university and then went off to America and did some football or soccer, as they call it, soccer coaching. And it sort of carried on from there. I just love to work with children and inspire them that they could all feel at that age, everyone would want to be the next Ronaldo or the next Messi. Everyone was bought into what you were doing. As you know, when you try to coach older kids, they get a bit grumpier, they get a bit more temperamental. So really coaching the youngsters was where I thought that age of where they're like a sponge. And then I sort of got into that habit myself, really, and developing my own education, because I felt like I was a bit of a slow burner at school. And I enjoyed it, but it took me a while to mature as a learner. And I found myself learning a lot more in my 20s than I did in my teens. And that's sort of where the ideas now to come from, to go into becoming an author and all of these things, because I feel like that sort of neuroplasticity of you don't ever really finish learning was where I found a bit of a passion for it. Obviously, going from sports then to the classroom, I had to go and learn everything again that I did at school, learn how you did all of the maths and all of this sort of stuff. So I found it fascinating, and you're always learning on the job. And the kids are obviously going on that journey with you as well. So that's why I love it.
You mentioned, John, that you didn't have the greatest experience at primary school. And people, we've not alluded to it yet, but you are a primary school teacher. Did that bring bearing into your decision to go into primary school teaching? Was that you wanted to influence and make sure that people didn't have that similar experience to what you had?
Yeah, in a way, because I found that a lot of the pupils, the peers that we had in our year group, there was a percentage of which that were probably lost by the time they got to secondary school, and they weren't really invested in the school. And I'd always think this is such a great place to be. Why do these people not enjoy coming, or why are these teachers getting such a hard time when all they're trying to do is the best? Which is obviously natural for any kid, really. But I wanted to be that. You know, I would always sort of reflect on the lessons that Mr. Temperton, Mr. Ram, really off my teachers. You always call them. We call them to this day. We call them sir. Quite a lot of them, because you have that respect for them. So I wanted to be that, the Mr. Tucker for someone who was in year 5, year 6, and really found a love for learning, and then they can carry on that. And then not in an egotistical way. I hope you remember me as your favourite teacher. Not at all, but as a person who maybe inspired a bit of a love for learning, and also just someone who encourages passion. So whatever you like to do, go and do it. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be the one size fits all, which I thought you had to be at primary school. You had to jump through the hoops of a standardized system. You can actually, all you're doing now is laying the foundations for going on to be entrepreneurs, or a lot of the jobs now online and all of these kinds of things that we're seeing. And there was a stat that I saw that 80% of jobs that will be available to the children of the future haven't been invented yet, because the technology of the world's evolving. So it's kind of a case of me not being the flag bearer of changing the system, but trying to instill a bit of a different way of doing things, really. And a lot of the younger teachers are like the same now, really. We realise the world's changing, and you can't do, it was a lot different from when we went to primary school, I think.
Yeah, I mean, my background as well. I've coached kids for years and years, and one of the things I've always found is I've tried to teach them in my own way, a different way, if that makes sense. I think when you alluded to there, when we were at school, particularly in primary school, very much a case of coming up to exam season, here's your answers, repeat back after me. I could never learn like that. I always struggled. I couldn't do it because it just wasn't in me. Whereas I found personally, you talk about being a slow burner, when I went to university, that's when I started to learn. That's when I started to flourish, when I could go off on my own and do my own thing and my own way of learning, of exploring and gathering information myself. That's where I found my learning to be at its best. And when I've coached kids, I've always said to them, I'm never going to give you answers. Please ask me questions. I always find that people who are inquisitive will do much better. It's just, as you say there, at that age group of being so young, it's so hard to get them to want to be inquisitive. But I find that they are naturally inquisitive, but we've instilled a philosophy of people not wanting to do that, not wanting to come out of the shell. Fear of failure is such a huge thing now. Everybody's terrified of failure. We're always taught that if you fail this, you fail that, you're wrong, you're not good enough. And I think it stifles a lot of people. It's taken me a long time to learn that, a very long time to learn that, up into my late 20s, early 30s, it's taken me a long time. So it's interesting to hear what you say there about trying your very best to implement that change from a young age. It's really good stuff. Now, what I want to go on to now, John, is I want to speak a bit more in depth about what it is you've decided to undertake. You mentioned there a change away slightly from education, but tied into that. So tell us all about what it is you're up to at the moment, and you becoming not just a teacher and educator, but an author. How is that going, and what's been the situation with that?
Yeah, it's crazy, really. When you come to think of it, back to schools and stuff, my English teacher probably, if they ever heard that I was writing a book, would have a fit at first before sort of having a look at the idea and looking at how we've changed. But yeah, it's the key word for me is inspire, and I found a bit of a bug for it. I absolutely love going out and inspiring people, and I think with some of the charity work that me and you have both been involved in, we've done certain events and people have come away feeling quite inspired. So I sort of realised actually I can inspire more than just primary school age children, which I love doing. But to have a greater effect on the world is something that I really would develop a lot of enthusiasm for. And that came through reading, and it was all caused by the first coronavirus lockdown. It was crazy, really, because I'd always wanted to read. I was one of those people who said, I just don't have the time. I've got such a busy life. I do not have the time. And I had to obviously become a little bit more selfish with how I manage my time, because I had quite a lot of high demands from the job, and I'd always undertake different projects. And that was something that I always loved doing. And as you know, with the charity, I had to maybe take a little bit of a step back, because there comes a certain point, I talk about realizations in the book. You have a realization of actually I'm undertaking too much on, and I become less efficient because I can't. If I'm trying to commit 10% to 10 different things, it just doesn't work. So I started reading more for mindfulness than anything. And I've always been a big fan of self-help books. When I was about 18, 19, I first discovered the self-help sort of section. And it was all about trying to grow a bit more confidence, because I was a very quiet kid at school. And I am very introverted, which a lot of people say, you speak well, you're confident, but I'm actually a huge introvert. And it is like one of those skills that you have to learn, really. So that's how I got into it. And I was reading a lot during the lockdown. And Bex King's Good Vibes, Good Life was one of them. Atomic Habits by James Clear is another book that I'd really recommend, which I found amazing. And all of these different self-help books, it just made me think, I'm reading someone's book who I'd literally not heard of until I picked up the book. And they could be sat in, America, Australia, India, wherever. They've written this book and it's having a huge impact on me. And they probably don't have a clue that it does. But, why not try something that is as huge as that, really, and try and have a wider impact? And every single year, I write a leaver speech for my year 6 students before I go on to secondary school. And it was all about going through the seasons of your life and how you'll aspire to be something. You'll have like kind of, I don't know, like a grounding experience, a realization before then choosing, do you pursue that avenue of your dream, or do you redirect and start again in life? And there'll be lots of other different inputs, both externally from social media and what your friends are doing, and internally to what you've always wanted to do. And I thought I'd just write about that, really, because that's something that I found myself. I spent a lot of my late teens, early 20s probably chasing the dreams of others because it was what everyone else was doing. And then I started to go off on my own a little bit. And I've really become a lot more of an individual and really sort of found myself. And that's all I wanted to do, really, with this idea. So I started just writing things down every night. I had a little journal next to my bed, because I'd just run through these ideas and I wouldn't be able to sleep, and I'd have all of this information in my head. So I'd just write it all down, and then in the morning it'd be there. And I'd think, I think there might be a book in this, And fair play to my partner, Sarah. She's been incredible. She's like, why don't you do it then? Why don't you start writing? And the rest, they say, is history.
So you've alluded a little bit to it there, John, about how you started off with the book. Yeah. But tell me about the process, because I think people often assume when they pick up a book that it's just there. It's a long stream of consciousness. It's just written. People have an idea. It comes to them and they just write it down and it goes and it flows. But tell me the truth, actually, about what it was like, the process of writing a book from start to where you are now. What does it take?
So the lockdown, obviously, we were restricted going outside. We couldn't really do much. And I'm very much an active person. I have to be exercising. I have to be doing something to keep myself sane, really. And for the sake of my own sort of mental health and my physical health has to be good. So I have to be doing something all the time. And exercising the brain is what I turn to. So I started writing. I thought, actually, I'm finding a bit of flow state here. This is quite easy, And I literally, it took me, I don't know how many weeks to write my dissertation, which was 10,000 words at university. And I knocked out 10,000 words for this book in I don't know, a day or two. It was just all this information. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of it has been edited and tweaked and stuff. It wasn't all there, but I found like a bit of a passion for it. So what I started to do was obviously dedicate. Like, I'm going to write about this, I'm going to write about that, and be a little bit more structured. And then obviously when the whole world opens up again, and work comes back to normal, and it does get a lot harder. I mean, I can't stress out enough really to those people who are part-time authors and workers how I tip my hat to them, because it has very quickly become one of the most difficult things I've ever done. But I love a challenge. I've done the Three Peaks, UK Three Peaks challenges, run the London Marathon, all of these physical challenges. I think writing a book is a crazy mental challenge, but it's something that I believe is really worth it in the long run, because you're going to get so much from it. I've already got a lot from it. I've learned a lot about myself, and I've tried to use that as my motivation, my fuel. I'm actually writing it for me, not for anybody else. I'm giving myself the advice. And I also wanted it to be another thing. It sounds crazy. So I haven't got a family yet, but I wanted to think, well, what could my children pick up in the future? And that's the words that I would probably give them. And that's the fuel really that I had. Try to not do it for everyone else, but do it for yourself.
It's as good a reason as any.
Yeah.
It really is. Talk to me a bit then, John, about the structure of the book. What structure does the book take?
So again, I keep alluding back to last year's restrictions, everything, but there was a really good Netflix documentary that came out called The Last Dance. I hope you were thinking I was talking about the Tiger King there, because that was also a good documentary. But yeah,
brilliant.
the Last Dance, I'm a huge sports fan, and seeing how the Chicago Bulls, the journey that they had. And I had a little bit of an idea from that. The structure of the documentary flickered through different timelines, and it was going back and forth through different journeys, through Michael Jordan's early career, through after he retired, and it was flickering back and forth. And that was an idea I had through the book. I've never read a book before that has flickered through various timelines. It's gone back and forth in the same timeline. But I gave three experiences, really, three really profound and vivid experiences that I've had in my life. And I've flickered through those timelines as the book's gone on. So each chapter will have three stories, 21, 23, and 25, the start. But as the journey gets older, because there's different purpose cycles for sort of time, really, you can't really designate a particular one to it. These timelines continue. And basically what it is to show is that the lessons that we learn in the book are applicable to various different situations, not just one situation that I've had. And also it talks about the people I meet along the way and interact with, because I've learned a lot from them as well. So that's sort of the structure of it in a sense, but following the stories, the creative non-fiction as it's called, because some names may have been changed or may not have been changed for various reasons. There is a sort of analysis section. So I've done a lot of research behind some of the things that I've thought of, because if I think of an idea, I've obviously first of all got to check that it's not been thought of before, but also there might be some research to back it up, which makes it more credible. So there is some sort of academic research behind it. And then finally, in the third section of each chapter, there's some tasks that are applicable to people that they can do. So it's more like you're writing your own story as well, not just myself. So you'll be able to take these practical tasks. I always encourage people to have a notepad with them and things like that. To be active really with the book, because I don't want it to be something that you sit down and read and it's just you sat down constantly. I'm very active. I always need to be changing what I'm doing, keeping focused. So I believe that the tasks will do that for readers.
So you mentioned very briefly there the title of the book. So in case people didn't pick out on that, what's the book called, John?
So the book is called The Purpose Cycle: Unlock the Secrets to Success. And
what's the reasoning behind that then as a title? Obviously, you mentioned you came up with all these ideas during lockdown. Yeah. You're writing them down. You're almost equating your story to practical experience. Are you, without giving too much away, because we want people to go and buy the book, when you're equating these experiences to your story, and are you perhaps saying in there how you might have done things differently, or how you potentially could do things now in the future to help with those issues?
Definitely. You're always learning. And for me, the main idea behind the book is all of the self-help, personal development, I prefer to call it, personal development books take you from A to B. like how to do this, and then you will come out better than you did when you began the book. But I've only really reread one or two books that I found really powerful. The purpose cycle is applicable constantly, hence the cycle element. So the actual end of the fruition, which is the last section of the book, when you're obtaining that fruition from what you've sown in previous sort of experiences, what you've been doing along the way, you then begin a new aspiration. And then it kickstarts again. You sort of level up in your life. You always want to improve and become further. You should want to better yourself constantly. So, it's quite a dangerous thing at 21. You're saying, I want to graduate from university. And then you graduate and you go, there we go. Life is complete, because you've got a long way to go, hopefully. So you want to develop a new aspiration, and it kickstarts again. And of course, your goals change as you grow and as you become more experienced as a person. My main focus initially was to qualify as a teacher. And then I saw some of the amazing jobs that my head teacher was doing and my leaders were doing. So I wanted to become a leader just like them. So it changes all the time. And like you said about the experiences and being positive and negative, there's a lot of both in there. And not all stories finish on a happy ending is what I can say there as well. So there's sort of a bit of a clue there as well.
No, it sounds fascinating. I'm interested as well about, you mentioned obviously doing the research element of the book in terms of academic research and how that backs up. As I alluded to a bit earlier, that's something that in university I sort of enjoyed and got stuck into. How did you find having to go away and do that? And, was it disheartening sometimes? I think I've come up with this great idea and then think, well, so-and-so et al. 1973 already came up with that one.
Yeah, it is crazy because you'll always find variations of something that you've sort of become brought up. And there's a couple of different acronyms and theories that I've managed to sort of not find anything for, which is really great. But then the supporting evidence between different points can be linked, because, a lot of things have already been kind of invented and a lot of things are getting reinvented. But I tried to bring different interpretations. I feel like my main strength as an educator was to be able to deliver something that's understandable and relatable to the person that I'm teaching. So I was hoping that I could really go through that channel of the book as well, because I'm trying to, like I said, I was writing it for myself. So I want to read it for myself and make sure it's understandable, because there are many books that I've been kind of interested in, but I haven't finished because I thought it's just too difficult to try and get my head around. So those kinds of experiences as well. But it was quite enjoyable to see that a lot of the things that I was believing, it has some real substance to it as well, because what I love finding out about is social dynamics and how the brain works and how we're sort of innate as humans to act in a certain way. One of my big things that I love to research is body language and communication. So those kinds of things I find really fascinating to look at.
So in terms of the purpose cycle then, John, are there any particular stages to the purpose cycle itself?
Yeah, so there's 5 main stages. And I won't give away the lessons for each one, a key character trait, because basically at the end of each chapter, there's 3 main lessons that I want you to learn from each stage. But then there's an opportunity for you to write 3 main lessons that you've learned from each chapter and each stage, and then a key character trait. And I won't go into those quite yet. But the actual stages themselves, the first one is aspiration. So we think of an idea, we see something that we like. I didn't want to call it inspiration because quite a lot of our triggers are from society, are external. Our initial aspirations as kids, a lot of us at school, like for example, myself, you watch David Beckham on TV, you want to become a footballer, or, you see dad go out to work every day and have a really good job or whatever it is, and you think, I want to do that as well. I want to provide for my family. It could be anything like that. And you have that aspiration. And as you obviously get older, I think through your early teens, there's a lot of peer influence. You see what the others are doing, and the danger is at the minute with things like social media and using it in a negative way. You're looking at celebrities or you're looking at Instagram influencers and you're aspiring to have that. So it's really key to try and focus on what is a true aspiration. And once you develop that aspiration, you do get the realization. So it could be something along the lines of, I split into 4 different types with the realization phase. Realization of self. So you find out a lot about yourself, that stage. And that's the most difficult one, because a lot of people don't want to have that deep conversation with themselves, essentially, which is, I need to change how I'm acting in a certain way, or you realize that you don't have the drive or desire. There's only there's only one Cristiano Ronaldo in this world for a reason. There's only one Elon Musk. All of these kinds of people, for a particular reason, they have that thing about themselves. But the realization of others as well. Who's your crowd? Who do you have around you? They say the average of 5 people who are closest to you. So what is your inner circle like? And then we look at the realization of your environment. It's not as easy to go and quit your job, become self-employed and launch your dream business if you're supporting a family of 5. It's just one of those, you're going to have to find another way to do it. You're going to have to change your environment to enable you to do so. And finally, the task-orientated realization. If I wanted to become an NBA player, I'm 5'7", Matt. So I'm going to have a struggle with the task-orientated element of that particular aspiration. So you have to reset and go back again and find something that's suitable. It's not one of those sort of airy-fairy books of you can be anything that you want to be as long as you think it. There is an element of hard work and perseverance to go with that as well. I love to manifest, and that's something that I do. But you bring the opportunity to your door, and then you've got to do the work yourself. So that's what the realization phase is about. The other 3 phases, the initiation phase, the hardest part of any journey is to start. You always, like you said, fear of failure is the main blockage to everybody's journey. Fear of looking silly. People might ridicule you. I mean, I love it now. If I ever see or hear anybody sort of throw a bit of banter towards me writing a book or doing whatever it is, if I'm having to do a TikTok to try and promote the book and all of this sort of stuff, it's just that people do actually stop their journey before it begins because of those things. And I try and use it as fuel now, and I absolutely love it because if you're not getting spoken about, you're not doing something right, maybe. And then the second to last stage, the creation stage, and that's your day-to-day, how you go about your life. It's the routines that you set, it's the systems that you have in place in order to become successful. And it's basically that consistency over a long period of time, which leads to the final stage of fruition. And the things that you've dreamt up of, what you've worked hard for, begin to show. And you reap the rewards from that. It was initially called fulfillment when I first drafted it. But fulfillment, we'd never really quite get there with total fulfillment until probably later life. So I called it fruition because then it would kickstart the next aspiration. Like a farmer who's reaping the seeds of one particular harvest, he's got to go and plant them again for next season. So it's the same with our dreams and aspirations, I suppose. You want to kickstart and go again.
I really like the bit where you mentioned there about sort of aspiration versus inspiration. I'm very much with you there. Obviously, the work I do, I have to be very active on things like LinkedIn. Always interests me on there to see what I personally believe is the glamorization of overworking. So people believe that you have to start the day at 4 a.m. And all of these tropes that you see of people listing what they do with their day, very rarely do they mention interaction with others, interaction with family, with kids, with friends, and for me, I personally believe, and this is where the aspiration versus inspiration thing comes along. If you're taking your inspiration from that, there will be something missing. So when you're getting to the fruition stage that you talk about there, what is it you're actually aspiring to achieve? If you're aspiring to achieve being exhausted and having a few more pennies in your pocket, you might get there. But what do we aspire to have and what do we aspire to be, I believe is a very important question, worth exploring probably very much at another time. But I really like that aspect. And now make clear here as well, at this point, I've not read the book. I've not seen any excerpts from the book. Didn't want to before we did this. I want to come in completely blind. Tell me then, John, where do you see the future of this? For you now, you've come to the stage where you've written it out. It's all out there now. It's all out of your head. It's down there. It's on paper. Where does this go for you for now?
Well, just before I say where it goes, I just want to touch on that last point you made about finding yourself as a whole person, because there's an interesting piece of research I did in the fruition stage with this Japanese concept called Ikigai. And it's not translated to any English word. So I sort of used Ikigai as what the fruition is essentially. And that there's different strands to Ikigai, but you need to have all of them essentially to become a well-rounded person in terms of Japanese culture. And there's 4 different strands to it: your passion, your mission, your vocation, and your profession. So the passion and profession elements come in to something that you're good at. If you do something that you're good at, you're going to get that sense of fulfillment and fruition from there. And you have to have that passion to drive. And like Simon Sinek says, working hard for something you don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something you do care about is called passion. And then your passion and mission link together to talk about what you love. Like you say, you have the passion in your workplace, Matt, but as we're both members of a charity, we have the passion, but we also have a mission. We have a driving force to do something that we love to do, and that's to help people. And then your mission and vocation tie in together to what the world needs. And then finally, your profession and vocation tie into what you can be paid for. So that is an element, what you can be paid for and how you can earn a good life, good quality of life does come into that. But that concept of Ikigai is bringing it all together. And obviously having that that love and support would go into that passion and mission element, because it should be your passion to be in a loving sort of relationship, if that's what you want to go and do and build a family and have strong connections with other people. So funny you should mention that, because I thought I'd just mention that before we go on to where I see the whole journey going. And in terms of seeing where the journey goes, I'd just love to have somebody one day, somebody completely random, drop me a message on LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever it is, and just say, I've read your book and I've felt really inspired. And I feel like that would just absolutely make my day. And of course, if that's a little piece of fruition, we always want to get a little bit more and hopefully, and see a new aspiration. And that would be for me to probably be able to have some opportunity to speak publicly, either in front of companies, organizations, help groups, people who need it. I'm already starting to do a little bit of that in January. I'm going to my old school, our old secondary school in January, to work with the English department, which is really great because they called me and invited me down, which I thought was just unbelievable. And then I'm going to a couple of my old universities as well, University of Hull, the University of Teesside, to do some speaking. So that would be to do a bit more of that, because I suppose that's still working with younger people. I'd love to be able to inspire the 30, 40, 50-year-old people who might think, well, this is the course I'm on now for the rest of my life. It's never too late to start again. And I'd love the purpose cycle to show them that.
No, perfect. I think in the more immediate future, then, what's planned for the book?
So the book is currently undergoing a crowdfunding phase. So it's quite an Americanized way of looking at it at the moment, because I've been accepted for publish by American company New Degree Press. I was picked up on a book writer's course by somebody called Eric Costa from Georgetown University. Basically, when I started writing, I started the Purpose Cycle podcast, which is what I use to try and build an audience. But also, when I'm writing my book, I need to interview people. I need to get experiences and stories. So I used it as a great opportunity to do both. And I interviewed somebody called Terry McDougall, and she was a business coach from America. And she said she really believed in the idea, and she got me in touch with this book professor, who then enrolled me on this program. So once you complete the program, you get accepted or declined for publication. That was a nerve-wracking couple of weeks waiting for the green light or red light. And yeah, obviously now we're in a crowdfunding phase where it's from a hybrid publisher. So they want me to have 100% ownership rights of my book. So there's no kind of glamorous book deal or anything like that where you sort of sell your soul. It's all about crowdfunding the book yourself to get it to print. And I'm 42% of the way there as it stands. I need to raise enough money. 100% of my goal would enable me to get the book to print. And that would make my dream come true, essentially, because then it could go out onto Amazon, it go to Book Reads, WH Smith's, contacted a few bookstores locally where I live, and they're all going to stock it. So it would be on all of those platforms once it gets that 100%. I can get the ISBN number. So that's the immediate target for me. Following that, it should come out in December. Publication would be, if I meet 100% of my goal, it will come out in December, and I'll be able to have a book launch, Matt, to which, of course, you are invited.
I'll be there. Don't worry. If I didn't get an invite, I'd still be there. Don't worry about it. So you say we're 42% of the way there. How do people get involved with it, John? How do they get on board to donate, to back the project, to support the project? What's the many and varied ways that people can do that?
Yeah, that's the way to look at it, Matt. It's a project to back and support. So I think the American way of crowdfunding is quite common. It's quite popular over there. You crowdfund a cause, a purpose. And a lot of people over here in the UK might not be as familiar with that. A lot of people think, oh, we're just buying the book. But there's a lot of things that I tried to include with that in order to make it a package. So there's many different packages on my crowdfunding page. Now, my crowdfunding page is on all of my social media platforms. I've been posting it most days, really. So it'll be available either in my bios of my LinkedIn, Instagram. We'll talk about that at the end, and my Facebook page. But also, I share it quite a lot. And it's on a page called Indiegogo, which is one of the ways of crowdfunding. And there's many different packages. So it ranges from the ebook, which works out at about 11 English pounds, which is a digital copy of the book, of course, all the way up to sort of a paperback edition, and some packages for companies and organizations as well, where I can come in and speak, do some impact ideas, which is an acronym that I have in the book in the creation phase, and little workshops with the people there as well. And I'm trying to give a lot more value for what they get, essentially. There's also opportunities to have calls like this where we can have 30-minute to an hour discussions about finding your purpose and really sort of going through different things, really, and airing out some ideas with each other. Every single person who supports the crowdfunding campaign will be given an opportunity to access a Facebook group where we can self-promote each other, really big each other up, share ideas, and get everyone to find their purpose, really, and really support each other, because there's a lot of stifling on social media. Something that I read upon called tall poppy syndrome, where if a certain individual poppy grows higher than the others in a field it's quite common in Australia and New Zealand, they'll cut the poppy down so it all remains uniform. And I believe social media can be like that if not used correctly. So this group is really somewhere where we can all thrive and grow together, essentially, and support each other. And also there'll be a personal note from myself, like a signed copy of a personal note to say thank you. And for anyone who does live sort of locally or can make it, an invitation to the official launch party, which will be held in Kingston upon Hull.
Lovely. Great place to hold it, mate. Couldn't think of anywhere better. So tell us then, you've mentioned it's going to be on all your social media platforms and stuff. Tell us what the handles are for those so that we can find them and we can get involved with that.
Yep. So LinkedIn, it'll be my real name, so Jonathan Tucker, and I'm under author at New Degree Press. So if you search Jonathan Tucker, you'll see me there. And in terms of Instagram, it's at The Purpose Cycle, and it's the same for the Facebook. So if you can't find me on LinkedIn, then the easiest place to find me is probably Instagram and Facebook. I do a lot of live streams as well, trying to really get myself out there and talking about various different things and being quite open, because those, again, who support me on the campaign will get to be key parts of the process, like choosing the front cover, reading some of my chapters early, obtaining feedback. I'm looking for 3 or 4 beta readers who will read the book and give me some feedback, some good, honest feedback, so I can redact it and make sure it's ready for December. So there's a lot of involvement there. I'd love people to get in touch and get involved.
Cool. So we started off, obviously, John, talking about yourself. We spoke about the book. We spoke about aspiration versus inspiration, the ideas that are in the book, the structure of the book, where we can get involved, how we can get involved. I want to finish now, if I can, John, a bit more on yourself. We've mentioned all about the project and what comes next for that, but what comes next for you?
Interesting question. I'm always I try to plan ahead quite a lot of the time. I always like to see where I'm going. I'm not really too sure where the book journey is going, which is great because there's a bit of unknown in there, and there is a bit of a fear of the unknown. But you got to sort of learn to fall in love with that and realize that you can only really control the controllables, and wherever this will take me, it certainly shall do. But I'll be making sure that I put 100% effort in to make sure that this book can really take off, and that, like I say, I can inspire a lot of people, be able to deliver some talks, and continue to educate more than just in my day job, really, and try and bring people to. I think personal development is such an important facet of life, and it's not really popular in terms of British culture. Very popular in America. A lot of people will either go to see therapists or read books or listen to podcasts. I think the podcast world has really opened it up to people now. Things like, obviously, Joe Rogan, there's the podcast that you're on yourself. There's lots of different podcasts that people can listen to and open up that world of, actually, we can develop as human beings and develop ourselves and not be ashamed of it. So I'm hoping that this book kind of breaks that barrier down with the young professionals the 21, 22-year-old me would have loved a book like this that I could really go through and relate to. So I'm hoping that the youngsters who are going through similar transitions in their life, maybe they've gone through a phase of doing what their parents had always wanted them to do and not really found their own path yet. Little things like that I would love to see happen. And again, it's just seeing where that takes me.
You've mentioned there, John, that the Americans have got an appetite for it. They've got an appetite for that kind of thing. You're associated with American University, American publisher. Any chance of getting across the pond?
I would love it. I've got some connections over there from when I was coaching football, and they're doing their best to help promote the book as well. It'd be my dream. Somebody's like a little question when we got the sort of offer interviews with the publisher. So what would you really love to do if you could dream big and it would be as ambitious as you want and reach for the stars? What would it actually be that you could do? And I said, I'd just love to be able to take my partner, my soon-to-be wife, over to America to experience New York and experience some of these amazing places as a way of almost working really for doing it from the book and letting the book bring me those opportunities in life. I would love to do that, and that's something that would be, it's far away at the minute, but it's definitely something that I've got in sight.
Brilliant, John. It's been fantastic to talk to you. Everybody get involved. The Purpose Cycle on social media, or find Jonathan Tucker on LinkedIn. Get involved with it. I've got my copy ready and waiting to go on publishing day. I can't wait. Get stuck in, get reading it. There's plenty of stuff that I can learn. I know that for sure. I'm not going to be one of those people who tells you I don't have time to read it. I'm going to try my level best to find the time to do so. John, thank you so much for your time this evening. Everybody, make sure you get involved. As I said, find the Purpose Cycle, find Jonathan Tucker on LinkedIn, and let's support and get behind this project.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you all for listening and watching. And please do get in touch. Any questions you may have, I'm more than happy to answer. Thank you.